5, 6, 7, 8.
Hi EXers, welcome to the EX Podcast episode number 35. This is your host, Stefan Vincent. I've started this podcast because I believe that companies have to think of themselves as employment brands if they hope to attract and retain talent. The podcast brings a different lens to the employee experience, a brand and customer experience perspective rather than a traditional HR perspective. Our guests, all thought leaders and disruptors in the EX space in their own way, come to this show to debate, discuss and share best practices on the key components that foster employee engagement and strengthen company culture, and also to spark the conversation on how to create positive employee experiences. One size doesn't fit all. What Airbnb or Google do around the employee experience may not be applicable in a smaller company. This is what this show is all about. Sharing stories of companies of all sizes, not only to show that EX doesn't require a large budget or a large team, but also that there isn't one recipe. Each company can find its own way through the EX journey. Today's guest is Jamie Naughton, Chief of Staff at Zappos, the well-known online retailer based in Las Vegas. Today, with Jamie, we will talk about why Zappos moved from a traditional management structure to holacracy, what holacracy is really about, what adjustments and improvements the company made along the way, what it's like to work at Zappos, what characteristics the company looks for in candidates given its unique culture, and finally how Zappos brings its community engagement and purpose to life. This week's EX podcast is sponsored by Structural. Structural unleashes the potential of people and teams by giving organizations real-time mobile access to employee data. You can find, engage, and retain talents with the Structural Employee Success Platform. Our listeners can visit structural.com/EX podcast to get access to the latest employee experience resources, including the Employee Success Playbook featuring 10 research-backed methods to improve business outcomes. I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you get a chance, please make sure to review the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. And last thing, if you want to send me feedback, suggestions for future topics or guests, you can reach me at svincent@exsummit.com or on Twitter at EX_summit. All right, let's get to it. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the EX Podcast. Super excited for today's guest, Jamie Naughton. Jamie is the Chief of Staff at Zappos family of companies. Jamie, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
For those who don't know you, can you tell us who Jamie is, what is Zappos family of companies, and what your current role is within the company?
Sure. So Zappos is an online retailer that specializes in customer service. The products we sell are shoes, clothing, handbags, and accessories. But we really pride ourselves on being very customer-centric and providing the best service to our customers. For me personally, I came to Zappos from the staffing world. Zappos was my customer, and so I was staffing them when they moved to Las Vegas, which is where we're headquartered. That was 13 years ago, so I've had lot of different roles within the company. Currently, as chief of staff, I oversee corporate communications, and in my chief of staff capacity, I help our CEO with whatever he needs, including managing the employees who do work for him, like the executive assistants and people who help with emails and things of that nature.
And obviously, Zappos is very well known not only for its business, as you said, online retailer, but also for its culture. And there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of articles written about Zappos' adoption of holacracy. So I have multiple questions on this topic. So let's start right now with question number one, which is what was the trigger that pushed Zappos to move from a traditional structure to holacracy?
So I think Zappos had a similar experience that a lot of companies did. When we were created, we were very much a startup, and we were very scrappy, and everybody did kind of everything in order to grow the business. And as we got more established and grew bigger, we noticed it was harder to get certain things done. And so holacracy for us was really an attempt to flatten out the organization and get everyone closer to the customer, since that's what we're about. So we wanted everyone to be closer to the customer, and then we wanted to try to figure out a way to counteract the natural bureaucracy that happens as companies get bigger. And so holacracy was also a way for us to create a lot more autonomy for our employees and give them more control over the work they do and how they service the customer.
How many employees work for Zappos?
We're just over 1,500, with the vast majority of those employees located in our headquarters in Las Vegas.
And what type of departments or teams do you have within the company?
I think we have a very standard kind of corporate operation. So we have marketing teams and merchandisers, developers. About a third of our employee base is customer service reps, which we call customer loyalty representatives. And then we have HR, finance, legal, things of that nature.
There are a lot of misconceptions about or around self-organization and hierarchy of purpose. Could you let us know what is a myth versus the reality of the culture at Zappos?
Yeah, I think there's a few myths. I think the one that stands out the most is, and based on the headlines that were written about us, is that Zappos got rid of all bosses. That's not exactly accurate. In the way that we self-organize, every employee has a lead link or several lead links, and that's another word for boss. So there's definitely people that report to me, and my job is to manage them and make sure that they're progressing and meeting the goals of our company and our department. And so there's definitely bosses. It's just a little different on how we manage.
And what does it mean to have a flattened organization? Is it how many levels of management or responsibilities do you have from Tony Hsieh, the CEO, down to the employees at the ground level?
Well, that's not exactly how our holacracy works. Is there's not really levels. You're a member of a circle or a number of circles, and you can think of circles as like mini departments, and every circle has a lead link. And I think the average employee is a member of 4 circles, meaning they have 4 different lead links depending on the roles that they're doing. And then Tony is he's absolutely the CEO, but essentially his job is what would you call it? Like on the board of directors, like the chairman. So he is the broadest circle in the company is called GCC, and he's the lead link of that. So all circles report up to him. But it's a little complicated, a little hard to explain, but there's not multi-level. So you don't have like a supervisor, a manager, a director, a senior director, a senior VP. You don't have all of those levels. It's you and then your lead link, and that's basically it.
Okay. And how does it work in terms of setting up annual goals for each employee? Is it decided from the top down, or is it more decided for each employee deciding what their goals are going to be, obviously tied to the overall company's goals in terms of generating more revenue, increasing customer service satisfaction, these type of things? How does it work?
Well, so it's a little of both in terms of top down and then created within that circle. So the broader circle can absolutely ask the circle below it to focus on certain areas. They just can't tell them how to prioritize that. But really the circle and all the members in that circle, so not just the lead link, but the employees of that circle as well, come up with the strategies and, what the purpose of that circle is, and then how they're going to work towards it.
What lessons did you guys learn, and what adjustments or improvements have you made along the way when you started implementing holacracy?
So I think one of the things that we learned quickly was that holacracy is very much like off-the-shelf system. Any company can implement it as it is. But we quickly learned that how it wasn't going to necessarily work for our culture and our environment. So we needed to adapt some of the way holacracy works to fit more in line with our environment. The core of holacracy is still intact, and the Constitution and how we do things, but we've really customized it to fit into our organization.
So for those who don't know anything about holacracy, could you outline some of the basic principles?
Yeah. So basically, holacracy is about meeting your purpose. So every circle has to have a purpose, and that purpose is put through governance, and then adopted as that circle's purpose. There's two types of meeting structures within holacracy. There's governance, which is, there's governance and there's tactical. And tactical is really about how work gets done. And then governance is more about what the work will be.
So does it require a lot of, first of all, I'm sure it requires almost 100% adoption from all the employees. And I would imagine that it requires as well a lot of empowerment of the employees to make it work.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. That's something we also learned early on. Is we tried to implement a holacracy as coming from the tech world and being kind of still startup in our mentality, is we tried to beta it. So we grabbed a few departments and asked them to participate in this test that was holacracy. And then once we saw how it was working and got really excited about what we thought it could accomplish for the company, at some point we had to decide to what we called rip the Band-Aid and just push everybody into this structure. And so we did that. I think that was 2013. And that's when you might have read in the press about the offer that we made to employees, where we offered employees severance if they didn't feel like this structure was right for them. But yeah, absolutely. It definitely works best when everybody is working in the same system. And what I've learned over the past several years is that holacracy is almost, it's like your own language. And this is very similar to what we learned when we launched core values. Like before we had core values, we still very much had a culture, the same culture, but it wasn't as well defined. And as soon as we defined what our 10 core values were going to be, it gave employees a common language to describe how they were feeling or what they thought was going well in the company or not going well in the company, especially with recruiting and having candidates come in. It was easier to describe like why you didn't think they were a fit or why you did. And holacracy did the same thing. As soon as everybody went through the training and learned how it was going to work, now we all speak this kind of common language, and it becomes, in the beginning, it's hard and it's stressful and change is never easy, but now it kind of runs in the background and is less noisy. It's just part of our everyday.
I would say if it's not the biggest, it's one of the biggest challenges that companies are facing when it comes to implementing some form of employee experience to the organizations is how do you tie this to business outcomes, and also how do you measure the success or the lack of success of an EX initiative. So Zappos is very well known for its outstanding customer service. Have you seen that moving to holacracy has improved customer service and, in general, the business outcomes of the company?
Yeah, I do. I think it was a journey to get us here today, but absolutely there's been wins along the way. And now looking back, we know that it was the right decision for our company. We know that our employees are more empowered to do what's necessary for our customers. So the frontline employees who are actually talking to our customers have more authority to get stuff done. But even our buyers have more authority to purchase product and how they are going to merchandise that product. So our business has continued to grow, and we're every year more and more successful. So I would absolutely say holacracy has been a good move for our company. But I think ultimately you can see the success, you can feel the success in how our employees are able to move around in the organization. And I think, and I understand that holacracy is very hard to explain and hard to understand. An outsider, you really have to kind of live it to understand it. But one of the examples I use is in a traditional organization, your department gets a head count. And so if you have your marketing and you get head count for a marketing coordinator, 100% of that marketing coordinator's job is marketing. And we really wanted to switch to really looking at our employees as whole people and not just a head for a department. So now that head is really belongs to Zappos as a whole. So my head count belongs to Zappos, not to one department. And so you have employees, every organization, every employee has strengths and weaknesses, and holacracy allows us to really play to those strengths. So if I'm really strong, going back to the marketing example, I might be a really talented marketing coordinator, but I might also be talented at finance. And our structure is really nimble so that I can spend 70% of my time really focused on marketing and maybe 20% of my time focused on finance, another 10% focused on somewhere else. So we're really tapping into the whole human and giving them the ability to explore different departments in the company and learn more things about the company in that process.
When Zappos launched, it was very innovative. They really disrupted the online retail world. And again, as I mentioned, has an outstanding customer service. So first of all, what it is like to work at Zappos, and how does the company apply all those principles around customer service, customer-focused, innovation, disruption mindsets? How does the company apply those principles to the employee experience side?
Well, I think it's been part of our DNA since the beginning that in order to have happy customers, you have to have happy employees. You can't run a call center, for instance, that has unreasonable quotas and scripts and doesn't allow any personality, and then send those employees out to in hopes that they're going to provide a great experience to your customers. So for us, it was always been about customer service, and customer service to us means not only providing great service to the actual customers, but knowing that every employee is a customer as well. We have a term here we use a lot, which is wow, and every interaction you have with an employee should be just as important as every interaction you have with a customer. So if an employee comes with a problem, my job is to find a solution to that problem, not just brush it off. Just like when a customer calls, you wouldn't just say like, oh sorry, can't help you. So we really go above and beyond for our employees as much as we do our customers. And that is evident in our work practices and our flexibility and how we lead our teams. And even things like our benefits packages are kind of over the top for our state and our country. So we really focus on just treating employees really, really well.
As you mentioned, you have about 1,500 employees. Are they all located in Las Vegas, or do you have remote employees?
We do have some remote employees, but when I say the vast majority of employees are in Las Vegas, like they're 99.5% of them are right here at our headquarters, which does make things a little easier than some companies who have multi-locations and then kind of subcultures within each of those locations. At one point in time, we had a large warehouse facility in a different state, and then our headquarters here. And that definitely is more challenging than having everybody under the same roof.
And from what I've read, Zappos has intentionally, moved its offices in very specific areas of Las Vegas. So could you describe, first of all, where your offices are located and why the move?
Yeah. So for most of almost all of our history in Las Vegas, and we moved here in 2004, we were in a very corporate center with a lot of other corporations. The buildings are all beige and nondescript, and the interior is very much designed to fit kind of cookie stamp any corporation. And we did what we could within those environments and made it our own, but we realized that it didn't feel like Zappos being in that area and in that type of building. And we wanted, we were growing so rapidly that we were spread out between multiple buildings on the same street. And so we wanted to try to bring all of our employees together and have a campus that felt as much like Zappos as our culture inside the walls did. And so while they were looking for somewhere to build a campus, an opportunity came about in downtown Las Vegas. For those of you not familiar with Vegas, downtown is not the Strip. The Strip is a different part of Las Vegas where most of the tourists go. But downtown is still very touristy, but downtown is really the history of Las Vegas. So if you think back to the 50s, that's downtown Las Vegas. And City Hall had a building that was built, I believe, in 1970, and they wanted to build a new building, and that was going to leave the old City Hall vacant. So we asked if we could purchase it and if we could take it over, and the stars aligned, and we moved from the suburbs down to the urban core in downtown Las Vegas. And I think some of the other reasons we wanted to be downtown is we wanted a walkable environment where our employees didn't have to necessarily work inside the four walls. Tony, our CEO, really believes in kind of serendipitous interactions, and he believes that creativity is stemmed by surrounding yourself with all sorts of different people from different backgrounds. And the best innovations come outside of your industry. So he wanted our headquarters to be in an environment that was conducive to that, where there's lots of coffee shops and restaurants and things of that nature, where employees could get out of the building and go work in the coffee shop and meet other people from other industries.
As you mentioned, Tony Hsieh is big on community engagements. And interestingly, consumers and employees are more and more attracted to buying from and working for companies with a purpose, a social responsibility, or community involvement. So how does Zappos bring all of this to life?
I'm sorry, your question is?
How does Zappos bring all of the consumers and workers' aspirations to buy from and to work for companies with a real purpose? How does the company bring this to life?
I think we've always been drawn to a higher purpose, and we've always been a very human company. So we tend to hire people that are always striving to be bigger and better and do more meaningful work. So I think that just shows up naturally in the people that we hire. And then for the community and corporate, our social responsibility, we're really committed to the city that we live in. And Las Vegas has had lots of challenges. We were one of the hardest cities hit by the housing crisis in 2008. And so we wanted to make sure that we were doing more than we were giving back as much to our city as our city has given to us. And so part of that was making sure that, City Hall was kept in. Las Vegas has a tendency to tear down buildings and build new. And we took over a very old building and spent upwards of $40 million just renovating it to make sure that it stayed. And then, pushing our employees out into the community to make sure we're supporting small businesses. And then on top of all the philanthropy we do, and we have large nationwide campaigns. But I think our employees really drive what the corporation does. Like, our employees are really passionate about animals. And so we launched a nationwide, what we call Holidays campaign, where over Black Friday to Cyber Monday, I think in 147 different shelters across the country, you could adopt animals for free, and Zappos would pay all the adoption fees. So I think our employees really drive our purpose and how that shows up to the external communities.
Out of the 1,500 employees working for the company, I would imagine that not all of them are from Nevada, right? So how do you guys did reach out to people, and how did you convince them to move to Las Vegas to work for the company?
Well, so when you live in Las Vegas, it is easier to find someone that's not from here than someone
probably.
So a native-born Las Vegan is a rare thing. I was not born in Nevada, and I didn't move here until I was in my 20s. But now I have two kids that were born in Las Vegas, so they'll carry on the tradition of being rare. But I think a lot of people do come to us that have relocated to Las Vegas, so not necessarily moved to Las Vegas for Zappos, but have already lived here and then applied and we hired them. But I think Las Vegas is a hard place to recruit to. It's my favorite city, and I don't ever plan on leaving here. But when you come from, the tech hubs of the country, like San Francisco or Seattle or Colorado, it's a hard sell. We're in a desert. It's 110 in the summer, it's 40 degrees in the winter, and there's a perception that Vegas doesn't have a lot of community or culture, which I think is false. But that's the perception. That's the reality we're dealing with. And so for us, creating a strong employer brand becomes twice as important. We did it for all the right reasons, which is for our employees, but unintended side effect was creating a brand that people were drawn to, that people wanted to work for. And so that definitely, our brand helps us recruit people to this crazy city.
So Zappos has a very strong consumer or customer brand, right? It's very well known, again, for its online retail platform, for its outstanding customer service, for the ability to try out shoes or clothes and then be able to return them pretty quickly to get either a refund or another size sent back to you. How would you define the employer brands at Zappos?
I think our employer brand is the same as our customer brand, that we're a brand about customer service. And so if you are going to be a customer of ours, we're going to work really hard to provide an outstanding wow experience to you. And if you're an employee of ours, we're going to do the same. Earlier you asked what it's like working here. And I don't know if I answered that, but no 2 days are the same at Zappos. This place is full of surprises and craziness, and it's really a unique experience. So some days I come in and there's a parade, employees are throwing a parade, and other days there's an event in the plaza that is especially for employees, or we'll have brands on site doing giveaways, and yesterday we were handing out holiday gifts. Like, there's always something. I think our events team does something like 150 events per year on site. So it's an insanely awesome environment to work in, very energized and creative. And I don't know if that explains it, but.
No, it does. So what are the main characteristics that you're looking for in future employees at Zappos?
So we have, like I mentioned earlier, our 10 core values. And when we're interviewing people, we're looking to see how well they fit into those values. So not every employee is going to be perfect in all 10 values, but we're looking to see that you're not really opposed to any of those. An example is core value number 10 is be humble. And this is one of the challenges we've had throughout the years in recruiting people like manager, directors, things of that level, or at that level into our company, is most companies have a lot of perks the higher up you go. And at Zappos, our perks are flat. So no matter if you're an entry-level or employee or the CEO, we all have the same perks. There's no special bonus structure for executives that employees don't get, and there's no special parking spots. There's no offices. There's none of that. So I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, it's just an interesting environment.
So what would be, what are the common characteristics that you're really looking for into potential employees, whether they work in marketing? I assume that you have a call center, whether it's merchandising. What are maybe the 2 or 3 main characteristics that you find pretty much across all the employees at the company?
Yes, thanks for that. That's where I was going. So be humble is one of the ones that we're looking for. And that's, it's hard to find people at certain levels when they come into the company to have that humility. So we do 4 weeks of call center training for every new employee. So whether you're hired at entry level or top level, everyone first starts as a call center employee for 4 weeks in there during training. So we need people that are humble, that really have customer service at the core. We call it deliver wow through service. So we're looking for people who instinctually know how important customer service is, regardless if we're hiring you for finance or the call center. We're looking for people who have a good sense of who they are, and be fun and a little weird is one of our core values. So we're looking for people who don't take themselves too seriously, who can relax and really fit into our environment. One of the things we do is we do tours with all the candidates, and like I said, you never know what's going to be going on. There could be a parade going through, and we really watch to see how they react. Are they uncomfortable? Our environment's also a little like eclectic. Like every employee has their desk looks very much like how they want it to. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of stuff on the walls, and not everybody is comfortable with that level of chaos. So that's what we're looking for, is really people who can fit into our culture and our 10 core values.
What does the office space look like?
Well, it depends what part of the building you're in, because every team is different. Like if you go where our developers at, they like, they like it a little more dark, so the lights are covered, and they have bigger computers because of the code that they're writing. The call center is very full of energy and lots of talking going on. So every finance is a little more subdued, but although they have unique office spaces too, because they decorate in different ways. We just had this huge fish tank built in on our first floor, which is now a nap room. So you can go in and lay in a massage chair with the fish tank over you. It's really beautiful. There's a lot of art around the building. We have a full-time team that does art just in our building. So they're always putting up new murals and taking old murals down, and really reach out to the community to get art into our building. So
that's interesting. It's quite unique. So you mentioned earlier that executives don't have offices. Is that correct?
Yep. The only people in the company that have offices are our lawyers, just because the majority of stuff they're dealing with is confidential. But our HR team doesn't have offices. None of our executives have offices.
What's the average tenure at Zappos?
I honestly don't know off the top of my head. I think the last time I asked, it was 3 years was the average.
And so I assume that especially on the call center side, and probably customer service or customer success as well, you have a lot of millennials. Do you have, what is the ratio of Gen Y versus, let's say, Gen X? And I don't know if you have any boomers as well.
Yeah. Well, we do have a really diverse age range. So from 18 to, I think, in the 70s maybe. So there are lots of different demographics in our company. Again, I haven't asked recently what our average age is. The last time I checked, it was around 36. When I started, it was 24. So we've grown up a lot in the time I've been here. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for that on what the breakdown of the age groups are.
And do you guys? So I mean, Zappos can be considered as a tech company or an online retailer. I mean, somehow both are linked anyways and connected. But are you very heavy on technology usage when it comes to employee communications, employee engagement?
Yeah, the vast majority of our communications are online. So we do old, like the old system of putting flyers and posters up, because we try to get employees where they're at. In fact, a funny example of that is in our bathrooms. The engagement team, they realize that you have a captive audience when people are going to the bathroom. So they created this newsletter called The Whiz, and in every stall of every bathroom in the building, there's a newsletter. I don't know how often they change it, but it's got trivia, and it's got different interesting things and like upcoming. We have a team here that produces like 5Ks, so you can it'll tell you about what run is coming up or what maybe a yoga instructor is on site. So you can find out good information from the whiz when you're going to the bathroom. But most of this stuff is done through email and through a system we created called Grand Central Station, where you can kind of connect to our intranet and our wikis and all the different systems we use.
I've read that Tony Hsieh lives in a trailer. Is that truth or is it a myth?
That is the truth. He lives in an Airstream. He bought a parcel of land downtown and bought a bunch of Airstreams and tiny homes and built a little, we call it the trailer park. And there's several people that live there, and then he has a lot of vacant ones that people come and go. So his friends come into town and they'll stay there, or we hire. We do the thing called all hands, where we do big, all company meetings, and we'll bring in like TED speakers. So if the TED speaker wants, they can stay at his Airstream park. Employees can stay there. So it's kind of open to whoever he wants there.
So before we conclude today, let me ask you a few fun and more personal questions. What is the thing that you like the most about Nevada? You're not from Nevada, so you've been there for quite some time already. But what is the one thing that you really like about the state?
Oh my gosh, only one thing. All right. I don't know if I could do just one thing, but I'll say there's not a lot of traffic here, and I come from LA, so commute time was a big deal to me. I want to be home with my family and not sitting, or at work. I don't want to be sitting in a car. Ease of accessibility, so I can get anywhere in the world from our airport. I can drive to several different national parks in a matter of hours, and I can be to snow in 30 minutes or to the, I'm already in the desert, but I can get to LA in 3 hours. So that I like that it's a hub. It's always open. It's always active.
I think it's a good way actually to describe it. That's pretty good. Obviously, Zappos is very well known for selling shoes online. What type of shoes do you like the most? Comfy shoes, fancy shoes?
Well, so my two go-tos, because like I said, it's either really hot or cold here. So sandals are 6 months out of the year, and then boots 6 months out of the year. So I love my boots and sandals. I don't know if I have a favorite brand, but we get a really nice discount. So I have a lot of shoes.
What's your favorite brand, if you have one?
I don't know if I have a favorite one. It goes in waves. Right now, I'm obsessed with UGG clothing, not the shoes, but the clothing, because it's soft and comfortable. I don't know if I have a favorite brand of shoes. It's all over the place.
You mentioned that Las Vegas is pretty central in the western part of the U.S. So obviously, you go on vacation here and there. What is your favorite vacation spot, whether it's in the U.S. or outside of the country?
I'm the type of person that if we're going to go on vacation, and I think it's well known, Americans, we don't get a lot of vacation time. And so if I'm going to go somewhere, I want to go someplace new every time. Right now, I've been bugging my husband. I've been a lot of places in the world, but I've never been to Boston. And so I really want to go to Boston. We tend to go to Salt Lake City a lot and to LA a lot because that's where our family's at. I think internationally, London is one of my favorite cities. So I'm always down to go back to London.
I love London as well. Las Vegas is a great city for foodies. Mm-hmm. Right? You have so many different foods, and from very upscale to very basic. What is your favorite food?
So yes, Vegas has the best food, and there's amazing restaurants everywhere. My favorite restaurant is a place called Bazaar Meat. It's inside the SLS Hotel and Casino, and it's by Chef Jose Andres. So that's my favorite splurge. It's a little expensive and upscale, so I love that. But there's a lot of local places for like Italian. Nora's is off the strip and amazing. There's really good Thai food here, so we do that a lot of fusion restaurants. We mix it up, but it's a great town to dine out in.
Right, so as a French person, I've got to ask you, my favorite chef is Joël Robuchon. Have you been to his restaurant in Vegas?
Oh my gosh, I think I have. It's just called Bouchon, right?
Well, at some point I know that he had what he called the Atelier. I don't know if it's still there or not. He may have a couple of restaurants.
Oh, I think I have, but it was funny. I was just talking about my favorite French place in Vegas. It is a little tiny bakery called Delicious Gourmand, and it is legit French. Like the cashiers, everybody speaks French, even more than English. And we have a lot of people from all over the world that live here because of they're just talented, whether they play instruments or they do acrobats for like Cirque du Soleil and stuff. So whenever you go in there, it's like being in France. Everyone's just talking French. All the customers are talking French, but their food is incredible. So if you come to Vegas, you got to tell me as a Frenchman if it lives up to your standards.
Okay, I'll put this on my list. And so what would be your last word of wisdom before we conclude this episode today? If there was one thing just to summarize our conversation, or just something that you would like to bring up about how important focusing on employees' well-being and experience is critical for companies.
I think I don't know if I have advice more than just a plea to companies out there that we spend the vast majority of our lives working, and we're all human and very affected by human experiences, and we have families and loved ones. And I think we, as leaders, we need to take more responsibility in ensuring that we're making a better world for the people that work for us, that they're happy when they come into work and happy when they're going home. And I think Zappos has really afforded me a quality of life that I couldn't get outside of Zappos, simply because, of course, it's not every day isn't Disneyland here. There's hard times, and sometimes there's politics, and it can get stressful just like any other company. But the type of stress is very different when you're working for people and with people that really care about each other. So I guess never underestimate how impactful your business can be to people by just treating people well, and knowing that at the end of the day, your culture is your brand. So however you're treating your employees is eventually how your customers are going to experience your brand. If you're a really bad organization that's not doing the right thing by their employees, that's going to rub off on the customers. The customers are going to find out, or they're going to experience firsthand really bad service from the employees that are also getting bad service.
That's a nice way to summarize the discussion. Very last question. How can we follow you and Zappos on social media?
Zappos is really accessible on Twitter. Our handle is just @Zappos. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. I'm also online, but I'm not. Nobody wants to see baby pictures of my kids, so it's much more interesting to follow Zappos.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to speak with me today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. I did as well.
Thanks for tuning in to the EX Podcast. If you want to learn more, visit our website at expodcast.com. If you want to find out more about our next conferences, go to exsummit.com. Finally, you can also find my manifesto on business to employee or B2E branding at b2ebranding.co. See you next week.